you, Sungwen. I'm the solution architect from Bristol Myers Squibb Research Operation IT Group. In this webinar, I would like to share with you our experience, how we leverage Bonita in BPM projects. So in this session, I will go through that, what do we do in BMS, what we have accomplished, how do we implement and architect Bonita into our BPM framework, and what's the story behind the data we have run so far. Then we have a Q&A session, so you can ask me any question you have, and I will be very happy to answer your question. So if you don't know Bristol Myers Squibb, we are a global biopharmaceutical company whose mission is to discover, develop, and deliver innovative medicines that help patients prevail over serious diseases. Do you know that the average time to develop a drug from discovery to market is about 10 to 12 years? Yes, it's a long journey to develop a medicine. Therefore, we always want to find the opportunity to improve our lab process and solution to shorten the development time for our patients. So this diagram is showing a typical process in a discovery lab and how we did the digital transformation from manual process to a web-based process app. Since we don't have much time today, I will skip this detail about this slide. However, the key information from here is we want to make sure the right task assigns to the right person at the right time. And actually, we did achieve the goal and save 5 FTE for this group after we complete the digital transformation for the process. So how do we implement and architect Bonita in our platform? The traditional application development approach is when a business comes into the developer team, and developer team and developer will just ask, what do you want, right? Requirement. So they can start to build the application from scratch, the server, database, process or business logic, and page, and all the search metrics created tools, then deliver the application. So that's good. Business is happy, and they say, okay, can I have a second application? So that's fine. So the developer team do it again, server, database, process, logic, homepage, and all the tools. So then deliver the second applications. So now, excellent job. Business happy and say, I need 4 more. So what that means, the developer team has built from scratch again 4 times. So you can find from here a lot of duplicate work and efficient way to deliver the projects. So we have delivered a BPM platform solution based on the Bonita that not only helps our scientists to manage and execute their processes, but also help the IT project delivery teams to short their development time, SDLC time. So this platform will provide generic features applied to all the process app that built in this platform. Think about the iOS in the iPhone, right? iOS provide the basic APIs, basic features. All the apps will focus on their own logic and develop and deliver to the iOS. So we have the same concept. So now the paradigm shift from application mode to the process mode, that the business coming in and to this BPM team say, hey, I need application, or I always call that process app, right? So then the team will say, what's your requirement? What's the business focus? So they just focus on build the UI form to collect the data and collect the decision, what the route for their business process, and who should be get the process. Get the tasks, and then the developer, BPM developer, can configure the application, the app property into the BPM platform, so they can just focus on their own business. So good, business happy, they want more. So in this case, compared to the before traditional way approach, we right now all the team just focus on the app form to collect data, plus to run the workflow, and they can just leverage all the generic feature from our platform. And furthermore, if each app needs a new feature in the platform, the developer can build in very generic way that can benefit for other applications. It's just like a platform a service concept. So from the support perspective, they will be easy to support because all of the apps are using the same design pattern and same language. So in order to do the orchestration and the integration in our research environment, we have leveraged the message queue to have a real-time communication to any external applications, such as electronic notebook or any link system. And the platform will provide a web services, RESTful web service to any outside external applications or vendor product to communicate with our process. And the process, the BPM process app can leverage our internal SOA web service platform to get metadata and or domain data from each domain master data source. And during the process, the design, all the data needed to present in our metrics, they will be collected to we call KPI table. And the users, if they need to join the other data warehouse or data lake data with our process data, then so they can do that through the database layer, and they can create a very comprehensive metrics through the visualization tool. And in this case, the visualization tool can be any vendors that they just needed to pull data out from our KPI table. Here's our high-level view of BPM platform architecture. We have a request portal that's a customized request portal top on the Bonita BPM engine. So this portal will be host all of the generic features like search, inbox, so very generic for all applications, apps. And each app in our environment, they built by pure HTML, JavaScript. So they can host inside of request portal server, or they can have their standalone. Like one of our example, we have apps. Is .NET application. They have their own logic UI server, but they just leverage the process we have hosted in our platform. So when the user log into this request portal, based on the user's privilege and the memberships, their UI will be changed. So this way, when the user can easy to find their work. And in here, we have 3 different databases. There's a business database we use in the non-SQL database to host all the application configuration data. And also we use in the, to store all the business data from the UI. And we have a KPI table, data database to collect all the match data required for our metrics. So when the project team design the process, they will provide what the information needed to be collected for the metrics. They will implement that. Of course, the other database will be for Bonita's own process database. And we just leverage our BMS, a standard visualization vendor, to present our metrics chart. We don't build any chart because if you are a developer, you know that you want to build a metrics that will be very tedious. If anyone want to change, that will be a lot of effort every time. So that's why we provide the data and leverage any visualization vendor tool. So we have implemented this BPM platform for about 4 years. Up to today, there are more than 450,000 requests submitted by more than 1,500 requesters from our 12 different process apps. So there are a lot of data we can dig in. So most of the people think they have what they need once they have a good business intelligence and enterprise reporting tool. However, the thing that makes business process visualization so interesting is the context of the process and the data generated. An executed process will be generated data associated with the actors, tasks, time, and the metadata. From the metrics, everyone working in this process will not just understand the activities for which they are responsible, but the role of those activities in the business process they impact. So after the process app deliver in production and the business users start to use it, process engine will start generate the data into the database. So from operation perspective, the business users who can be a requester, approver, fulfiller, or manager, since they can build the data visualization by their own perspective. Requester can find out how many requests have been submitted and who handled their request most, how long have been working on each request. Approver can find out how many requests approved in certain time. The fulfiller can find out how many tasks assigned, executed, and the time spent in each task. And they know who is their big client, which means that who submit most tasks to that. Right? So the idea here is the same pool of data can provide different view for the different actors. So in our current environment, we have a process app in one domain. From the metrics, we find out many users are using around three apps for their daily work. We find so with sorry, give me a second. Therefore, we are thinking about to do an orchestration process for this app process. So and so we can avoid data double entry, and so they can leverage the same metadata for the matrix purpose. So the orchestrate process first, in certain step, they can kick off a different sub-process. For example, they can, first step, they needed to work on a process before they can moving forward. So after the process complete for some group, they will come back and move to the next step. So in some certain step, they may have to, in parallel, to do two things. So before we have this kind of orchestration process, a user have to go to individual application apps to do the work. So they have to type it the same data many times, and sometimes if the app's not calling the same metadata from the same data source, which means the metadata will be different. Maybe the case different or the naming different. So when we have orchestration process top on all our process, they can very easy to moving forward the data along with all the sub processes. The same for the rest of the steps. So now we have a pool of data coming from different process and domain. And so the business user from each layer can have their own data visualization. We have a very interesting story about how we find the relationship between two independent process apps. And they don't know each other before we find that. So last year, after we delivered a process app outside our research area for a financial group who handle the vendor invoices, and while we create the metrics for this group, we find out that some of the metadata are so familiar from a lab request process. So we reached to the lab process project team and show them the data, and they told us, oh, when the process for the lab request process needed to outsource the request, they will generate a contract and the invoice, and since the invoice will be handled by this financial group to handle the invoice. So, and they are so happy, they want to know what the data related to their lab request. So after we deep dive and find details, and we find out actually there's a potential process between these two processes, because the request process when they need to outsource their request, they will go through a contract group, and this contract group current is in the middle, and they are using the email to communicate and SharePoint to communicate with their clients. So we find out that's the gap we can fill to deploy a process. So in the future, the request process, when they needed to outsource their request, they were in their step, they can kick off a process for this contract process. And after the contract process in complete, they can kick off an invoice process through this process. So this story tells us that the data always provides a very useful information to help us to find the gap and improve our business process. So from IT development and the support team perspective, that's a lot of data. And the good thing from Bonita have the engine will provide some fail task. So for usability, before the IT support team always can using the data to find out the issues before user find it. So this way can help the usability better. So user won't we can always find the issue before user find it. So that's the about how we implement and how we what's the experience when we using the data. So we can, if you have any questions, I just go over very high level how we do and what we do and how we implement. If you have any question in detail, so we can discuss it.
Thanks, Yusun. Really interesting presentation. Let's see if we have any question for you. So you were talking about the BPM developer. So we have a question about the BPM developer team. Can you describe more how the BPM developer team work? I think probably how different teams who need application comes to them to build new process.
Sorry, I mute. Okay. In our environment, we have a BPM virtual team. So you know that there's a process. I mean, that's BPM platform. That's core capability. This team provide. Also, we have a project deliver team, which will be deliver the project on top of our core capability. So the team, the member of the deliver team, most that we divide to kind of developer. One is UI developer, one is process developer. So since our architecture, we decouple both the process and the UI. So they can, most of the time, the process will focus on their, what's the process needed to design and build. And UI will be working with business from data collection, collect perspective. And later on, when they complete, they will integrate with UI and the process. And then they can then work with the core team to configure the app property and then deploy to the our platform. So that's basically our team in our BPM environment.
Sounds good. Thank you. I think in the same context, we had a question which was to know if you have a process established for engaging with the BPM developers when you want to evaluate new potential projects. Do you have a process established around that?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. Do you have a process established for engaging with the BPM developer team when you want to evaluate a new potential project?
Right. The current, so we start small. So when we start the project, we just a small team. So when we start to develop applications, and so they still have a core team. So the core team will be host the core capability and will engage with all the project teams. And in the meantime, when we talk to each project teams and the core teams, since we have the idea what's overall the process in this platform. So every time when the business reach to us, say there's a potential process needed to deliver, we the way when we start to review the process, we always to look up what the process we have currently. Is there any relationship, and where is and then we go discuss with our business users and what's the workflow, what's the client. So then we can so from there all the discussion. Sometimes we can find what's the gap, and we need to involve the other client, business client to do the work. Mm-hmm. So that's the benefit when you have a core team to host all the process. And every time you deliver a project, you always know what we have, what's the process we have so far, and we can, if there's the opportunity to link the process or orchestrate the process.
Yeah, that's a good point. So you can also reuse some of the work you've done before and capitalize on the knowledge of your team, I guess.
Correct. Yeah. Also think about the UI, because UI is app. So every time you deliver UI, and all the widgets you build can be leveraged for the other application when they want to start to build some UI work.
Sounds good. Thank you for your answer. I have another question still in the same context. How long does it take to implement a new project from A to Z, I guess.
So okay, so depends on requirement. We have estimation from 3 months to 6 months. So why we say at least 3 months? Because even the development that you can complete in short term, but the key is always the business user need to take time to do the testing and feedback. And we apply the agile methodology in our environment. So every time we always build from the process, the step, and we using the when we build a prototype, actually it's the real work because you know that you don't want to wait the last time when user give you feedback. So every time we build a prototype, we in in the sprint, we will show to the user that when user give feedback, we add the feature. So we just build the app in the agile way. So when the prototype complete, user accept, then that means our project is complete.
Sounds good. And talking about agile approach, do you feel that the BPM platform is a good candidate for agile approach?
Yes, I definitely, yeah, because from from our experience, when we deliver a project, we always coming up the basic workflow. We start with happy path and with the simple form. So when we start, so first iteration always, first sprint always provide the high level, the basic happy path and the simple UI form. So when we show the user and user will coming back to tell us what they like, what they don't like, then we in the next sprint we will start to put more requirement on it. So and special for the business project, app, I find out agile methodology very useful.
Great. Thank you for all these answers. I don't see any other question at this point. So if you have any other question that might come up after, doesn't hesitate to contact us. We'll make sure that we answer all of them. I have a last question that just popped up. So the question is, once the process is implemented within the BPM platform, how flexible will be to change it? I think it comes up to a change management when you have the process implemented. How easy is it to make changes to the current application?
Okay, that's a very good question. So depends on your request life cycle, right? So one of the challenge is in our environment, we have different processes, and each request, the request life cycle can be different. One of the project, we have the life cycle maybe 2 years, but some life cycle maybe only 1 day or 2 days. So the when the user coming back, they want to change the business process. I Since we using the Bonita studio, so you can change the process very easily. So, but the challenge here is that the new request were the new process will be only applied to the new request. So, which means if your request life cycle is very long, like 2 years, then sometimes the old request may not adapt to the new process. To change the process is very straightforward. You can just because you can version in your process. But the challenge is if your life cycle, your request life cycle is a long time, then you may need to have some kind of strategy how to migrate the old request from previous version to your new version of process. But if your process is very short, life cycle very short, then that should be fine because after your request complete, that you always have a new process, new request applied to your new process.
That makes sense. Thank you.
And actually, that's the one question I bring back to the Bonita is that if the platform can help, BPM and a platform can, Bonita platform can help us to do this kind of work. So that's one of my feedback to the Bonita that how to handle this long request. That they may they may face different process version during their life cycle time.
No, that's a very good
So
point.
for our solution currently is if we need, we will rerun the whole all requests and move them to the new version of the process. But it's not very efficient way to do that.
No, I agree completely, and that's one of the point we have been improving over the years, trying to make each aspect of the process live updatable, so you can modify it. So I think at this point we can modify the connectors implementation configuration. We can modify the Groovy script inside the process without the need to redeploy the process itself. So it's there is some flexibility here. It's something we have to take into account when we design a new application, obviously.
Sure.
Sounds good. Again, Yusun, a big thank you to you for your presentation today. I hope it was interesting for all of our attendees. We will try to repeat some webinars like that in the futures. So if you want to have the word of the end, Yusun, I will leave you say goodbye to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you for joining, and feel free to contact me if you have any questions.
Thank you. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.